Elena had always believed she was living a fairy tale. With a successful husband, a beautiful home, and a seemingly idyllic life, she felt blessed. However, beneath the surface of her picture-perfect existence, a sinister secret festered, threatening to unravel her world. It began with a glance, a fleeting moment of temptation that spiraled into a torrid affair. Elena met Marco, a charismatic artist, at an art gallery opening. Drawn to his mysterious aura and piercing eyes, she couldn't resist his charm. Their clandestine meetings became a dangerous addiction, each encounter fueling a fire that consumed her with guilt and desire. Months passed in a haze of deceit until one fateful night, Elena's world came crashing down. She stared at the pregnancy test in disbelief, the two pink lines sealing her fate. Fear gripped her heart as she realized the baby wasn't her husband's, but Marco's. Desperation gnawed at her sanity as she wrestled with the dilemma. Torn between loyalty to her husband, David, and her forbidden love for Marco, Elena's nights became sleepless, haunted by nightmares of the impending revelation. One stormy evening, Elena decided to confront Marco. She arrived at his secluded studio, the rain-soaked landscape reflecting her turmoil. The studio was eerily silent, filled with half-finished canvases that seemed to watch her with judgmental eyes. Marco appeared from the shadows, his expression unreadable. "Elena, what's wrong?" he asked, sensing her distress. "I'm pregnant, Marco," she whispered, her voice trembling, "and it's yours." For a moment, silence enveloped them. Then, a sinister smile crept across Marco's face, sending a shiver down Elena's spine. "That's wonderful news," he said, stepping closer. "We can be together, raise our child." But Elena's heart sank. She realized too late that Marco's charm masked a darkness she hadn't seen before. His eyes gleamed with a malevolent hunger, and she felt trapped, like prey ensnared by a predator. "No, Marco, I can't leave my husband. I can't do this," she pleaded. Marco's smile vanished, replaced by a cold, menacing stare. "You don't have a choice, Elena. You're mine now, and so is our child." Panic surged through Elena. She turned to leave, but Marco's grip was iron. He pulled her back, and in that moment, she saw a flash of the true horror lurking beneath his facade. His once handsome face twisted into a grotesque mask of anger and possession. "You can't escape me, Elena," he hissed. "You'll never be free." Terrified, Elena managed to break free and fled into the stormy night, the rain mingling with her tears. She drove aimlessly, her mind racing. She had to protect herself and her unborn child from Marco's sinister grasp. Elena sought refuge at a remote inn on the outskirts of town, hoping to find solace and clarity. But her nightmares grew more vivid, filled with visions of Marco's malevolent presence. Each night, she felt his cold breath on her neck, heard his whispering promises of doom. Days turned into weeks, and Elena's paranoia intensified. She became a shadow of her former self, constantly looking over her shoulder, expecting Marco to appear at any moment. Her once radiant beauty faded, replaced by hollow eyes and a gaunt face. One night, unable to bear the torment any longer, Elena decided to confront her fears. She returned to Marco's studio, now abandoned and shrouded in darkness. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and an unnatural silence hung in the air. As she ventured deeper into the studio, Elena's heart pounded in her chest. She called out for Marco, but only echoes answered her. The walls seemed to close in, the darkness pressing against her. Then she heard it, a soft, sinister whisper calling her name. Elena. She spun around, but no one was there. The voice grew louder, more insistent, and she felt a cold hand brush her cheek. Panic surged through her, and she stumbled backward, tripping over a loose floorboard. Elena, you can't escape me, the voice taunted. You're mine forever. Desperation drove her forward, and she found herself in a small room at the back of the studio. There, she discovered Marco's journal, filled with deranged scribblings and sketches of her. Each page revealed his obsession, his descent into madness. But what terrified her most were the final entries. Marco had performed a dark ritual, binding their souls together. He believed their love transcended life and death, and he intended to claim her and their child for eternity. As Elena read the final, chilling words, she felt Marco's presence envelop her. The room grew colder, the air thick with malevolence. She knew she had to escape, but the exit seemed impossibly far. With a surge of determination, Elena ran, her footsteps echoing through the empty studio. She burst into the night, the storm still raging. She didn't stop until she reached her car, her heart pounding in her chest. Driving away, Elena vowed to protect her child and never return. She sought help from a spiritual healer, hoping to break the dark bond Marco had forged. The healer performed a cleansing ritual, but warned Elena that the darkness might never fully release its grip. Years passed, and Elena rebuilt her life in a distant town. Her child, a beautiful boy with Marco's piercing eyes, grew up unaware of the sinister legacy that shadowed their existence. But Elena never forgot the horror she had escaped, and she remained vigilant, always sensing Marco's lingering presence. Every so often, in the dead of night, Elena would wake to the sound of a familiar whisper, and she knew that the darkness still watched, waiting for its chance to reclaim her.